Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our Career Booster webinar series, where today we're going to be tackling taking your next step on the career ladder. My name is Jeremy Bell, Career Services Manager here at Grantham University, and I'd like to introduce you to our moderators and our presenters. But first, I want to let everybody know that our session today is being recorded, and that recording will be sent to you shortly after this broadcast today. So just expect those in your inbox over the next couple days. And we will have a section for questions, so if you do have questions, we will tackle those towards the end of the presentation. But as you're thinking of them, you can enter those in the question field for those of you who are listening on your desktop or the GoToWebinar software. So I'm going to move forward and introduce our moderators today. Today we have Raylene Jones.
Hello, everyone. I am a Career Services Coordinator with Grantham, and I work with students in the Business School and the College of Arts and Sciences.
Awesome. And also joining us, we have Doug Demler.
Hello. I'm one of the Career Services Coordinator over the Engineering and Computer Science and College of Nursing and Allied Health.
Great. And now I'm going to turn it over to today's presenter, Matthew Wright, Advocacy and Outreach Director for the Children's Hospital Association, and I will let Matthew take it from there. Welcome, Matthew.
Great, thanks, Jeremy. I'm glad to join you, your colleagues, students, and other university participants today. I'd like to add to the topic for this webinar couldn't be more relevant to my own career. For more than 10 years, I've advised students and aspiring professionals who want to achieve their career development goals. I leverage my prior experience as an aspiring professional. In many ways, I still am. I think we're always growing and aspiring, throughout our entire lifetimes. Again, I leverage those experiences not only as an aspiring professional, but also past mentorships, as well as my extensive network across industries to offer strategic advice and tactics that work. Earlier in my career, I started my own small business and managed advocacy and marketing campaigns on behalf of high-profile organizations and corporations. Achieving success in marketing development and execution, coalition building, national and regional advocacy campaigns, public affairs, and both traditional and digital communications. At the Children's Hospital Association, I currently direct and implement strategies for building and mobilizing a national advocacy network, as well as provide direction and technical assistance to more than 200 children's hospitals in establishing, building, and strengthening hospital-based advocacy programs. Next slide, please.
Awesome. Okay, so Raylene, first question.
So why is career status important? Well, why should professionals care about their career status?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For many people, it's a particular job title, job responsibilities, maybe a promotion, or the amount of money you earn, but not always. For instance, recently on LinkedIn, there's been a story circulating about a headhunter who called a male candidate about a new career opportunity. It was a promotion from his current role, and according to the headhunter, this candidate had the right skills and qualifications. So when the headhunter called the candidate politely responded, "Sorry, but I'm not interested." The headhunter pressed him more on, "Well, why not?" until the candidate said something which seemed quite confusing. The candidate said that he had already made it to the top. Well, the headhunter was familiar with this candidate's current company and looked at his resume again. To be honest, this candidate wasn't anywhere near the top. Matter of fact, he would have needed binoculars to even see the top. After all, he wasn't even a manager yet. The candidate explained that, quote, making it to the top, unquote, for him meant he loved the exact work he did each day. He loved his company, he was treated fairly and with respect, he made enough money to be comfortable, he had excellent benefits, he had flexibility, and most importantly to him, he's never had to miss a single football game, school play, parent-teacher conference, anniversary, birthday, or any other family event. This candidate knew what taking the next step in his career meant. More time, travel, and sacrifice. So he simply said, it's not worth it. So as you evaluate what career status means to you, I want to ask you, what's your career top. Because your definition of making it top doesn't necessarily have to be society's or anyone else's definition. Throughout this webinar, we'll go over both strategies and tactics that you should take for both self-reflection and where you are now and where you want to go. But also, again, perhaps through that process, you'll gain a better understanding that maybe where you are now is exactly where you want to be, and there are opportunities to grow where you currently are. So we'll cover both paths during this webinar. And the most important thing is really just that you do you. Don't try to be anyone else. That you be yourself. Your priorities in life matter. Both recognizing that your personal life can mean just as much as professional. Sometimes those two are very closely intertwined. But it's very important to evaluate again what matters to you, and then ultimately you do what's best for yourself. Next slide, please.
Why would someone want to move up the career ladder?
Well, kind of like what I just mentioned, it's really a question only you, and that is each person can answer. The perfect career for you would most likely fit what I like to call the G plus P plus V formula, which stands for gifts plus passions plus values. Consider your strengths and passions as well as your values. Basically what's non-negotiable about the way you work and what you want for your life. I believe there are 3 stages to help you determine why you may want to move up the career ladder. First stage is to turn inward. This is where you can remove yourself from reality, at least for a little bit, to simply better understand what will make you content and why you might want to make a career move. First, give yourself time in silence. It's just spending even this 15 to 30 minutes every morning without any noise or distractions. Ask yourself meaningful questions like, what is my next step? And what would I really be happy doing? And listen to what responses come from your intuition. We spend so much of our days doing that we don't give ourselves enough time for just being. Another step is to travel. This doesn't have to be the whole lose yourself to find yourself line, because I know from personal experience that doesn't actually happen like that. But what I mean is to seek movement and exploration. A long car ride, an afternoon in a place with good people watching, or a short weekend away. Often a change in scenery is hugely inspirational, as is problem solving and demonstrating self-sufficiency. Next, reflect back on your childhood. What things were you naturally good at? What are your happiest memories? What did you dream of doing before the world started pushing and pulling on you? Let your past successes help inform your future. You also should record your dreams. Dreams are an incredible window into the subconscious mind. Before you go to bed, try to spend some time reflecting and asking yourself for clarity about your next step. Maybe even leave a notebook under your pillow, and upon waking, write down your dreams before you look at what time it is, before you get dressed, or you check your cell phone. Reflect on reoccurring situations, symbols, people, and places. In addition, it's a great idea to go for a daily walk, and it doesn't have to be for very long either. Many great creative minds have sworn by walking, with no music and no distraction, for inspiration and introspection. People such as Gandhi, Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and even Beethoven. Henry David Thoreau once wrote, "Methinks that the moment my legs begin to move, my thoughts begin to flow." A 2010 study found that walking for 40 minutes 3 times a week enhanced the connectivity of important brain circuits, reduced declines in brain function associated with aging, and increased performance on cognitive tasks. Further, you should try journaling about as much as you can, really everything if possible, but make sure you tackle 3 questions in a written format. When do I feel most successful, proud, motivated, or joyful, and why? What have I enjoyed most about my life and career to date? What has caused me suffering? And same thing, ask yourself why. If I could only change one thing about my life right now, what would it be and why? And what do I love about myself? What are my talents? Also, have purposeful dreaming time. This is different from time in silence or spent journaling. It's time to actively engage your imagination by visualizing alternate possibilities for your life. The human mind's capacity to imagine the future with nearly as much sensory details as real life is really one of its most precious and sometimes one of its most paralyzing capabilities. So use it to your advantage. And finally, at least for this stage, take money out of the picture. You can put it back into the equation later, but it's important to spend time really considering what you would do if you didn't have to worry about finances. This mental exercise also lets you take a step back and see how much money does influence your decision making, and if it has to influence it to the extent that you allow it. The second stage, seek external inspiration. You should spend time with inspirational people. Maybe you've heard the phrase, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. When you're looking to make a transition in life, surround yourself with the kind of people you aspire to be, ones who can provide insight, connections, and new ideas. Also, try having deep conversations with family and friends. After a period of meaningful and ongoing introspection, you can begin to share what you're discovering about yourself and the world with others. Talk openly with the people closest to you and probe deeper than you normally would. Sometimes sharing your thoughts and desires out loud helps clarify or even discover them for you. But don't ask for advice in the usual way. Instead of asking others what they would do in your shoes, ask them how they would decide what to do if they were you. The how provides decision-making frameworks that keep you in the driver's seat while still allowing a helpful degree of outside opinion. I also suggest you read, such as autobiographies of people you find inspirational, as well as a few personal development books specifically oriented around career and purpose. Also, read widely about topics of interest to you. By following your intellectual curiosity, you can discover new fields you might like to explore. Further, why not take up a new hobby? This is related to curiosity too. Learning something new is inspirational, and it also grants you the ability to see yourself succeeding in new frontiers. Not to mention that it often leads to meeting different kinds of people who can enrich your life and open up unforeseen pathways. And do what I call some productive stalking. And I don't mean it in the illegal way. I'm talking about spending time on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Google, and maybe even create a spreadsheet of all the people and careers you find inspirational. The goal is to answer the question, who you admire and why. And for the third stage is really taking action. And I know that's probably the biggest part that people want to begin with. How can I take action around this? Really first reach out. Remember all that productive stalking I just talked about? Now you're going to use that information. Start reaching out to people on email, LinkedIn, and other social media, and maybe request, if it's long distance, maybe request a short Skype video or a coffee meeting to pick their brain about their career path. This is what I call informational interviewing. Next, set up at least 5 informational interviews. It's important to get out there and hear yourself communicating about your talents and experience, as well as learning from others. It's even better to start practicing by doing interviews when you are relatively unattached to the outcome, so you can still perform well, but feel confident and relaxed. This approach can also lend you new ideas. Perhaps you never would have considered a certain position or company before, but casting a wide interview net open up new realms of possibilities. Another way to take action is to work for free. Now, I don't necessarily mean no pay employment, but why not reach out to those people whom you had an informational interview and offer to do something helpful for them for free? Send them a deck of research on a new market that they might be interested in. Perhaps connect them to someone you know who could help their business or organization. Make a small database of potential new clients for them. Bottom line, get creative, and you'll get a lot of the information about what the needs are when you conduct that informational interview. So that will certainly help you with what you might be able to do for them for free. And if you are in a position to afford it, Boldly ask a company you admire if you could work for free for them for a few months, simply for the sake of exposure and to prove something to yourself. In addition, brainstorm all your options. Sit down and make a list of every conceivable next step you could take, whether it's school, like Grantham, sabbatical, joining a friend's startup, creating an online business, staying in your current role, asking for a promotion, making a lateral move, or changing fields entirely. Once you've brainstormed every route you would possibly want to consider, narrow it down to a list of maybe 2, 3, up to 4 options that seem most interesting to you. Further, it's important to focus on the first step. For your shortlisted options, figure out what the first logical step to accomplish them would be. Since you're already taking courses through Grantham University, then the first step is to identify programs of interest. So talk to Grantham's Career Services team or to a faculty member in a desired topic of study. If you want to make a lateral move, that is, if you like your position, but you don't necessarily like your company or industry, then you may want to attend a networking event in the respective field in order to meet representatives of different companies and different industries. The idea is to take small, non-committal steps in a few directions to get a feel for those paths. Next, it's time to try something. The key to making a transition in life is to avoid paralysis at all costs because you won't get anywhere through contemplation alone. It's important that once you've examined all feasible options and tested the waters with a few shortlisted options, you take action. Of course, your action should be accompanied by an understanding that nothing in life is perfect, nor is anything entirely permanent. You'll never know until you try, so why not give it a try? And finally, choose to focus on the best case scenario. When change is upon us, we naturally focus on and plan for the worst that can happen. I know I do it myself. It's a natural part of our survival-based makeup. Instead, try making a decision based on the best thing that could happen and see how that inspires confidence in making your next big move. In the end, it's paramount to realize that your next step does not have to define the rest of your life. It simply has to provide momentum. It has to retain your happiness of today and offer an incremental growth in your happiness of tomorrow. But it doesn't necessarily have to account for your happiness 5 or even 10 years from now. Think about how much time and energy we all probably waste trying to project ourselves in 3, 5, 7 years into the future and surmise what our future yous would want and base our decision-making today on that hypothetical person who may or may not even come into being. Taking the next step or changing direction doesn't have to be a long, complex, or an emotionally draining experience. In reality, practicing these steps in 3 stages on a regular basis can actually help to sustain momentum and naturally offer opportunities for personal and professional advancement, allowing you to live a life of seamless transitions and self-assured navigation. Next slide.
Thank you for all that information. We talked about making sure, you talked about making sure that that next step is providing momentum for you. How can you assess your current professional status to make sure that you're on the right track, giving yourself momentum for your long-term goal?
Yeah, that's really important. And really, going back, I think I include this in each of my the answers to the last 2 questions. Let me say, is really you have to determine what's important to you. Because by making this determination, it'll help you know the factors to weigh for your current professional status. To do this thoroughly, you have to identify the values you hold about a future workplace and position. And really, this list could include anything related to you. For instance, do you desire a position with a fun challenge? If so, include that in the values list. You really should ask yourself a range of questions, and I'll just throw some out there just more for brainstorming. Some of these may be more relevant to each person than others, but perhaps ask yourself, which type of work would you still enjoy doing in a year? Which type of work schedule would be better? Which type of workplace would provide a better work-life balance or a blend? For which type of work would you say, I really enjoy this, versus, well, I can do this, but meh. What organization would be most proud to say you work at? And which position would allow you to grow most professionally? where would allow you to try new things, as well as what would provide the greatest fun challenge. Which position fits you best culturally? Which position would allow you to be the healthiest? And which one provides the most security? Which opportunity would provide the most flexibility regarding work schedule? Along those lines, which position has a better commute? Say, if there was a snowstorm that came, would you be able to work from home or maybe even take the day off? How flexible would they be? And how important is that to you? Which has better employer-sponsored benefits? Are the organization and or the department financially stable? How you go about making decisions is a related variable for which step your career should go. Many of you may be familiar with a widely cited decision-making inventory from the Myers-Briggs type indicator. One of the 4 dichotomies of this inventory is that of making decisions. On the one end of the spectrum is making decisions based on facts, logic, and data. It is labeled thinking. On the other end is making decisions based on emotions, gut instinct, or feel, and that's labeled feeling. It's noteworthy that even the most critical and thinking-based students with whom I've worked may gather lots of information and data, but ultimately come to conclusions based on their gut instinct. So if you're struggling with this big life decision of your next career step, I encourage you to talk with other people and bounce off ideas off them. Gather numerous perspectives before making a decision by talking with trusted connections, including your colleagues, campus career center officials, and family members. Hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Next slide.
Matt, as career coordinators, we get this question quite a bit. And you'd mentioned making decisions before, but how does a person determine which step on the career ladder is right for them?
Yeah, that's really a big one. Really, I suggest a couple of approaches to help each person answer that question. And the first is to test the waters. That is, it's time to start dipping your toe in the water, right, running small experiments to determine your next steps. Do side projects that test ideas for your next move. This will help you gather feedback and build a bridge between where you are now and where you want to be. You should take on a passion project. You might even set up time with friends or colleagues to provide expertise or attend an industry or networking event. It's best to start a few projects at once. I like to use a horse racing analogy. You don't know exactly which horse will pull ahead or gain momentum from the start to finish. So I encourage you to set them all up and see what happens. But again, prioritize them, because you'll then begin to become clear on what you can do efficiently and effectively. So when doing this, there are really 2 things to ask yourself. Do I enjoy this new area? And can I become an expert at it? And do I even want to? Next. Once you land on a particular move to make, then it's time to launch in a new direction. At a certain point, it becomes time to say publicly, I'm doing this, I'm all in. You need to commit to a vision of what you might want to do next and the skills you'll need to get there. You might not immediately see how these projects and activities relate to your next move, but the bottom line is you'll be better prepared to begin pursuing that next step on the career ladder, whatever that next step might be. And next slide.
So this is really similar to what you were just talking about. You're suggesting you visualize all of your horses lined up, but how can you have a more, do you know for sure, if this step is the next step for me, if this is the right one, how can you sort of narrow that down a little bit?
Yeah, That's a good question. I think, I really think that the key really comes down to evaluating a couple of things and really evaluating your skill and competency gaps as well as your personal drivers. For instance, to really evaluate the skill and competency gaps, I suggest asking, which experiences or capabilities do you lack that people on a similar career path might have? Mm-hmm. What do others perceive as your greatest weakness? I know that's sort of a common interview question. How do I answer that? But more for introspection, what do others perceive? And you can even ask people what they think. Yeah? Which development gaps do you need to address before you can pursue your career goals? And what other experiences do you need to accomplish those career goals? Such as experiencing different functions, maybe even a different geography, place, or a different industry. What additional education or certifications do you need to reach your career goals? Clearly, by pursuing your education through Grantham, that's a really important step to help you get there. And how well do your career goals align with your current development opportunities? So that's more in terms of sort of valuing your skill and competency gaps, again, to help you identify, that next step for you. And then evaluating your personal drivers, you should really ask yourself, what do you value most in terms of your career, such as opportunities for achievement, development, autonomy, work-life balance. I know we've talked a bit about that already. And again, what drives you? What are you more creative or concrete in your mindset or in your outcomes? Or are you more process-focused, driven by compensation and altruistic focus? And which non-work goals and priorities may influence your career decisions? In what ways? So there are a lot of things to help you evaluate how you'll know that what's the next step for you. Again, so going back to the example I used with the headhunter and the male candidate in regards to reality is the next. Really, he thought he was at the very top of the career ladder for him, and there were a number of reasons why. And likewise, and I know I've walked through some, several ways to evaluate this, but I know for many people it is, I want more in terms of particularly more responsibility or more opportunity to be able to grow either within my position or within my field. Again, whether it's with my current employer or elsewhere. So. Again, I think these types of evaluations will really help you best identify what that next step is for you.
Thank you. It's great to hear you talk about identifying those skill gaps because that's something that we've talked about before. We actually have a development worksheet for it that we can make available if you're interested that helps, look at that job and where you are and identify those gaps. So it's great to hear you confirm that for us.
Great.
Matt, does it ever make sense to move laterally to help advance the career ladder?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, a lateral move could eventually lead to a step up in many jobs and industries. I'll share how to use lateral moves and other off-ladder opportunities for career catapults, as well as how to avoid getting derailed. As today, more than ever, a career detour just might lead to your career destiny. At every level, including the top, professionals, managers, and executives in waiting commonly zigzag through several lateral lurches before stepping up to their desired position. And I can say in my own career that's been the case. There were, and I'll just provide a quick example here. While I mentioned I had started my own small business, and I ultimately concluded that I wanted to work sort of within a different field, basically. And so what I did is I took, in many ways, you think, being a small business owner and having clients, you sort of are your own boss and all that. Well, my bosses, everyone has bosses. My bosses were my clients. I really aspired to sort of work in a little bit different industry, at least in terms of providing the type of consulting that I was doing. So I went and joined basically a larger public relations and public affairs firm and worked for them for about 7 years. It really was, in many ways, at best, it was a lateral move. It may have even been sort of like if you want to look at a literal career ladder, a slight step down. It even ended up being a pay cut, for that matter. But I can tell you, and hindsight being 20/20, I don't regret it for a minute, because I wouldn't be where I am now in terms of what I'm doing in my field as a result. Literally getting that experience was imperative for where I wanted to go. And so really, if you don't plan ahead by considering lateral rotations as part of your career development plan, you may well end up getting stuck on your career ladder rung indefinitely unless you find a way to take a larger-than-life step up. Yet, paradoxically, Career advancement sometimes may be less likely if you haven't taken the time to boost your experience and confidence with lateral moves. Cheryl Palmer, who's a career coach and founder of Call to Career, suggested a helpful analogy. If you're stuck in a traffic jam, it may be hours before you're able to move forward. Doesn't it make sense to change lanes, exit on a side road where you can move more quickly and navigate around it? Because sitting in the traffic jam and fuming doesn't get you anywhere. So along these lines, I'd like to share at least what I put together as 7 pieces of advice on how to effectively turn a sidestep into a step up. First, it has to make sense. Without a strategic career path, lateral moves can merely become a merry-go-round. You must proactively plot your own career plan to make sense of diagonal and lateral moves. After all, your employer often won't do it for you. So the first thing to know is that it's up to you to pursue and land opportunities that advance your career agenda. A great place to start is to envision your next up move. And then, as I like to say, reverse engineer the qualifications you need to make a serious run for that position. As we discussed earlier, you should assess your current experience and skill set to determine what you might need to get to your desired step on the career ladder. By comparing the skills required by the next step job to the skills you currently have, you'll quickly see the gaps that a lateral move can fill. I know that certainly was the case for me, and I've seen it for others as well. Next, do what needs to be done. Your informal self-assessment will likely uncover areas where your skills could be stronger to get you to the next level. You should determine specific strategic actions that will help you reach your career goals faster. For instance, if you're a project manager who wants to become a department manager, you might need 2 things. A stronger network outside your department, so your reputation is already established with your potential new peers, as well as broader exposure to customers and clients, so you can show that you can drive growth as well as get work done. In this case, a short-term rotation to cultivate relationships with other departments and functions, or working on an assignment that puts you and your team on a customer-facing project can be an appropriate step to take. Third, volunteer strategically. It can be difficult to find time to volunteer projects when juggling your full-time job responsibilities, your education, and or your personal life. But strategic volunteering can be a powerful way to rapidly expand your network of influencers and to backfill appropriate career development skills. To spin community service into an opportunity for a lateral move, you may want to consider, say, joining an organizational committee whose volunteers complement, but don't duplicate, your existing network. Look to your current skills for a logical toehold. For example, if you work in marketing, join the marketing committee. Your end game is to transition to an assignment that builds your business skills once your credibility has been established. So a marketing exec who needs operational and financial management experience might volunteer to co-chair now an annual event. Such assignments tee up results-driven case studies for employees to bring back to their day job, illustrating business skills that prove qualification for general management. Fourth, ensure you're still learning. Considering you're affiliated with Grantham University, that might seem obvious. Check that box, right? Well, sometimes taking a few steps sideways or even back can help you move forward. Not all lateral moves or career detours will take you in the direction that you ultimately want to go. The trick is knowing which one will and which ones won't. But learning goes beyond coursework. Learning occurs in everyday life, as we all know, and it can be detrimental to take a career detour if you're unlikely to learn anything new in the next position. So to help avoid a dead end, you should evaluate any lateral move in the light of whether it will expand your skill set or neutralize what may be viewed as outdated or legacy experience. Career detours can be beneficial if they round out your overall experience and practical education. Some detours enhance your understanding of an industry or related industries. For example, industries that are vertically integrated. When determining whether a career detour is beneficial, consider how you will use your newly acquired skills for subsequent roles. Fifth, decide for yourself what up really means. As we discussed earlier, part of effective career planning is knowing what's right for you. If you reach a career crossroads where a move feels wrong based on your own goals and visions, whether it's sideways, up, or down, listen to yourself. Not everyone's path makes sense as a vertical trajectory. Similar to the example I shared earlier about the headhunter who contacted a male candidate regarding the next step in his career, let me quickly share the story of a female employee working with a senior company leader. She knew that the next available step on her organization's traditional ladder would force her to spend more time traveling. And that's something she dreaded with a young son at home. So after spending some time redefining what career advancement really meant to her, she discovered that her current post gave her the flexibility and true advancement opportunities she wanted. Sometimes, again, your current position could very well provide everything that you're looking for. Other times it could be, my current employer does, but maybe not this particular position. We'll talk a little bit later about how to potentially advance within your current organization, your current company. And sometimes it does require you to then, again, leave your company or change industries based off of, again, where you're looking to go. 6, I like to call this leverage the lattice. Whether your lateral move comes about by design or even decree, there are ways you can maximize time horizontally. One advantage of latticed moves is that they allow you to experience different viewpoints and perspectives. Instead of looking down your own ladder, you look across the lattice of the organization. And rather than asking for input from people who share your perspective and experience, the question becomes how to embrace and leverage the different vantage points, including those of different generations and backgrounds. Finally, maybe even look at creating your own promotion. With the decrease in mid-management positions among many companies and organizations, often an employee with about 10 to 15 years of experience may suddenly find there's no next level in sight. Their leaders may be in the same age range with no plans to retire or leave anytime soon. In cases where you can't expect a promotion, it may be time to orchestrate your own with a few key strategies. First, identify the pain within your organization and how you are uniquely suited to help calm that pain through your current position. Next, build a business plan for a new role, department, or service that you might lead. It's that vision. Let's get back to the dreaming, take yourself out of reality, but then ultimately making it practical. Next, communicate with key players in your organization to let your intentions be known. And take your efforts as seriously as you would a new job search. After all, it takes creativity, persistence, and confidence to create your own next step. Now, not always will your current employer, take you up on this offer to, create a new role, department, or service that you could lead. But what it does do is it shows them that you have greater expectations of yourself and that you want to help the organization or help the company do things even better. So ultimately, more times than not, it's viewed in a very positive light. Next slide.
So what are some surefire ways that you can prevent yourself from moving up the ladder? What are barriers that hold people back from making that next move?
Yeah. Well, I believe there are several surefire ways now to get promoted or be positively recognized or prevent yourself from moving up the career ladder. So I'm going to talk these in the sense of if you really took this along the lines of stuff that you did. So just hear me out here. So if you don't want to get promoted, if you don't want to be positively recognized, and you want to prevent yourself from moving up the career ladder, here's some things that you should do. First, be complacent. Don't plan your day. Approach each day without a plan in mind. Second, do the bare minimum. Have the attitude of, well, they don't pay me for that, or, that's beneath me. Third, rely on your current base of knowledge. Exhibit a belief that there's no need to learn new skills. Fourth, voice your complaints in a negative way. So be vocal about what you don't like at work and without sharing any positive aspects. That's one quick way to be to polarize yourself from everyone else. Finally, don't share the credit. Put your name alone at the top of successful projects. Colleagues and others in your professional network will despise you as a result, and what network you had will quickly dwindle as a result. Those are just a few things that I found through my experience, and I've learned from others about surefire ways that will keep you from advancing and sometimes even staying at your current rung of the career ladder.
what strategies should our listeners take to position themselves to move up the career ladder?
Yeah. I believe really I'm going to outline several strategies that will help position you for a move up the career ladder. And I am going to look at it a bit more with your current employer, but try to also look through the lens of if you were to change to a different organization or a different company, or again, perhaps even looking to change industries. But I do think a number of these strategies will be helpful for you to look through that lens. First, develop mentoring relationships. One recent study found that in 4 out of 5 promotions, those promoted had a mentoring relationship with someone higher in the company who helped spread the good word about them. Some companies have formal mentoring programs, but even if yours doesn't, there are still ways you can build relationships with people in higher positions, such as asking someone to lunch or coffee to learn more about what she or he does. Mentors also can be great sources for information career guidance. I can tell you firsthand for me, I certainly wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't even have 10 years ago have started my own small business without a really important mentor, someone who's willing to do just this for me, and it's really had a profound impact on me personally, as well as helped me advance in my career. And I've tried to be that same type of resource to other people ever since. And so again, this is something I really strongly believe in. Second, quantify results. While promotions aren't necessarily based on your past performance, you can certainly make a better case for taking the next step on the career ladder by showing detailed information about your past successes. After all, those who get results get ahead. Keep a record of everything you do that enhances your employer's bottom line, that puts your employer or your department in a good light, that's creative and innovative, and it shows your loyalty and commitment to the organization. Third, practice self-promotion. I know that's not always easy. After all, we're taught by our families that modesty is a virtue. But just as with job hunting, if no one knows how great you are, you won't get noticed. So be a known quantity. If you've had major accomplishments or you've created new or award-winning programs, make sure people know about them, especially the people who are in position to help you move up the career ladder. Sell yourself and let it be known that you seek more. For example, you may want to consider sending a monthly email to your boss, as well as your boss's boss, to keep them updated on your progress on various projects, to share any accomplishments or accolades that occurred in the previous month. That's also where quantifying your results can benefit. Fourth, establish a bond with your boss. Or if you're looking to leave your organization or industry, establish a bond with someone who's influential with another organization or in the industry that you want to pursue. I'll talk about this sort of in the boss context here. And it might help to think of your boss as one of those border guards between countries. Your boss can either be raising the gate and waving you upward to your next position, or your boss can be keeping the gate down and blocking you from any movement. So use all opportunities to make your boss a key supporter of your desire to move up the career ladder. I suggest using professional settings to seek counsel and stress your interest in staying with your current employer. Use performance appraisals not just to go over your accomplishments, but to talk with your boss about potential roadblocks to a promotion and how to overcome those roadblocks. Further, try building rapport with your boss by learning more about his or her outside interests and hobbies, and then chatting about them during conferences, parties, or other informal activities. Fifth, acquire new knowledge and skills. It really goes without saying that one of the best ways to succeed is getting a promotion is to expand your knowledge and skill sets in areas that are critical to your employer. Or again, if you realize you need to move to either another organization or company or to another industry, expand your knowledge and skill sets in areas that would be important to them. As technology and other environmental forces change rapidly, you need an ever-increasing skill set not only to perform your job, but to stay marketable. You should not only keep current with industry news and events, but also pay attention to trends and events outside your specialty. 6, build your network. The more people you know, who know your strengths and abilities, who know your value to the organization and to others, and who know at least some of your ambitions, the more likely your name will be discussed when new opportunities arise. An added benefit of networking is that you'll learn much more about your employer or about those with other companies and organizations and in other industries if you network with people in those other areas. And lastly, ask for more responsibilities. Volunteering to help out in other departments or teams, or simply asking for more responsibilities increases your value within your organization or your company. So asking for more work shows your interest and desire to help your department and employer to succeed, as well as puts a spotlight on your value to the organization. 8th, act professionally at all times. Be sure to earn a reputation for being dependable, professional, and cooperative. Act and look the part. Dress professionally and neatly, even on business casual days. Ask questions when you aren't sure how to do something. I dare you to be different and make yourself stand out for the pack. Just make sure you do it for the right reasons. Keep a positive outlook on things, even when in tough situations. Don't whine, complain, or blame others when things don't go your way. Make a name for yourself in your industry through conferences, articles, and speeches. Don't be the clock watcher. No one likes the clock watcher. And ultimately be a problem solver. Don't go to your boss's problems. If a difficult situation arises, be sure to come up with at least one solution before seeking your boss's blessing for dealing with that situation. Problem solvers get promoted. Complainers who expect the boss to solve all their problems simply don't. 9th, be a team player. Because so much of work is now accomplished through teams, whether it's departmental or cross-functional, it becomes even more important to share successes with your team and to avoid pointing your finger when there are failures. By being a team player, you only build your reputation and increase your value to the organization. And finally, create your own opportunities. After studying the needs and challenges of the organization, if you see that an area has been neglected and you happen to have key skills in that area, go ahead and write a proposal for a new position. This goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Even if your employer doesn't proceed with a new position, you again have shown initiative, creativity, and value to them. And these things can only help the next time a career promotion becomes available. Next slide.
So I do have a couple questions. That was very good information. But on the in the case where someone does have that boss that's trying to hold them back, what would your advice be for that person?
No, that's a really good question. I think that part comes down to the evaluation of where you are now and where you want to be. And so you certainly need to evaluate your current position. And obviously, your boss certainly plays an important role. It's not just the work you do, but likewise, if you desire for more, again, whether it's more responsibilities in your current position or likewise a promotion, and your boss is a roadblock to that, you may need to consider, then that's where you may need to look to potentially at opportunities outside of your organization. It rarely is successful to go around your boss. The only exceptions would be if it's in a different department, and so it would be a hiring manager in a different department. But if it's in terms of essentially moving up the career ladder within your current team, essentially where your boss is the leader of that team or one of the leaders of that team, you may need to consider looking elsewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do have one other question. You mentioned mentors, and you want to find a mentor that's influential, but what if your mentor isn't necessarily higher than you within the business? Is that still okay for that relationship?
It's a really good question, and the answer is yes. I think that's really, that in particular can be, it doesn't have to be higher. I think the key is sort of in terms of the goal of the mentorship is really to learn more about what you can and should be doing to position yourself for your next opportunity, and obviously the personal relationship there too. And so really, that's an evaluation that you need to make as an individual on whether that's more of a colleague-to-colleague relationship, or again, if you're both on the same rung of the ladder. Versus a mentorship. And so I think part of it just comes down to the definition of a mentorship too. But likewise, there can be some who are on the same rung of the ladder as you who can be mentors for a variety of reasons. One, maybe they've been higher and they decided, and I know someone in particular that she decided made this decision where she was a supervisor and decided that she, after about a year and a half, there was a restructuring within their team and decided that, you know what, I don't want to be a supervisor anymore. And so, and I prefer, and she basically helped craft the type of role that she would have, which is very integral to the team, but it's not a supervisory role. But likewise, so as a result, she is now, while she's not leading the team, she is very much sort of peer-to-peer with many others on her team. So in many ways, she has very unique experience to share about what a supervisor would be, would be looking for. So that can be a very valuable mentorship with someone who may be on the same rung of the ladder as you are.
Awesome. Thanks so much for asking that. We'll get back to our scheduled question. How can I network my way up the career ladder?
Well, amazingly, over 60% of career opportunities are found and filled through networking, whether that's in person or online. So for those of you who send off your resume to the black hole that is cyberspace and hope for the return call or email, you may or may not get that return response. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But if you do, you're still not likely to be hired for that position unless you've networked for it. So I'd like to, as quickly as I can anyway, share 12 steps to network yourself into your next job and up the career ladder. First, get out there to networking events and join some groups. There are so many great groups to join. Set a weekly or monthly goal of how many you want to attend and make sure you hit it. Next, well, attend industry events that you may never have heard of or been a fan of. I would even suggest volunteering at an industry event by helping to hand out name tags. It's really the best. Handing out name tags is the best seat in the house and by far the easiest way to meet everyone at the event. Third, hand out business cards. And that doesn't always mean a current employer business card. You can create your own. Business cards can be as simple as your name, specialty, email address, and phone number. Also, hyperlinks to your resume and portfolio should always be updated and listed on your business card as applicable. Fourth, really no one likes a wallflower, at least not in networking events. So work on your interpersonal skills. And I know that's not always easy, especially for the introverts. I'll be honest, I'm one myself. Simply attending an event but not talking to anyone will only make you frustrated and then, among others, make you look awkward. So find someone you know or look for someone else who appears not to know anyone else there. You can usually tell, and buddy up and chat it up with them. And together you'll find yourself falling easily into conversation with others. Next, do your homework. Are you attending an IT networking event? Then be prepared to talk about IT topics. At a healthcare networking event, you may need to be ready to talk about that. Every industry has a blog, website, or magazine, so scan it and read up on some topics. Next, market yourself. Be your own best marketer. Make it your mantra. Be prepared to talk about the easiest topic in the world, which is you. And prepare that 1-minute elevator pitch, primed and ready, because you never know when the right time may arise, but also it may be a very limited amount of time. Next, accentuate the positive. Although you may have recently been part of a downsizing or yes, you really hated your old boss, if someone asks you why you're there, never answer with, I lost my job, so I figured I'd check this out. Or, my boss is a real jerk, so I'm looking to leave. Always accentuate the positive. For example, say something like, I'm here because I've heard great things about this group and wanted to check it out. My specialty is online marketing. I thought a group of like-minded folks would make a great addition to my network. Then utilize social networks. Make sure you have a LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook account to help you get your name out there. And hopefully we'll have time to quickly address social media, so I'll share more then. Then ask yourself, who do I know in my online network? Have you ever really looked at your network? Because you might surprise who knows whom. LinkedIn is a great way to do that. Because, for instance, one of your former colleagues may be close to a hiring manager of a company you've been dying to check out. So they'll talk about the 6 degrees of separation. Do some homework and make your net work for you. Polish up your online profiles. It's common for people to have some online photos, comments, or postings that, to be honest, are not necessarily appropriate for prospective employers to see. So remember the basic rule. If you If you wouldn't have handed it to a hiring manager in an interview, take it down. And finally, create content and engage in an online community. Just having a Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn account won't be of much help unless you put yourself out there. So I encourage you to start a discussion and interact. Next slide.
Well, you alluded to this in the last answer to the question, but what role can social media play to help advance a career?
Well, great segue here. I really suggest doing the following. And first is creating relevant profiles. You should build compelling professional profiles for yourself that include your job history. And depending on where you are in your career, I encourage you going back no more than 15 to 20 years. While LinkedIn is an obvious place to go, you should also consider Twitter, Google+, even Facebook, among others. Those profiles should demonstrate not only what you've accomplished, but also your strengths and what you offer future employers. Next, and this gets back to what we just talked about with networking, network online. Connect with others in your industry. For instance, LinkedIn's groups are a great place to do this. Search the directory to find groups in your industry. Join those which are especially active and vibrant. Then introduce yourself to other members. Build your social capital by becoming known as a source for interesting content, which you can easily find elsewhere online and share with the group. Third, be engaged. You should follow companies and organizations in your desired field on LinkedIn and Twitter, so you're automatically notified about new hires, product developments, and other news. Also on Facebook, like companies you're interested in and join the conversation about industry trends. It's a great way to demonstrate your value and expertise to a potential employer. Next, be known as a resource. Help other people out by answering questions, making introductions, and linking to provocatively relevant content. It's obvious when people have a what's in it for me mentality. So you should regularly answer questions on LinkedIn and post hyperlinks to such content on that platform, Twitter, and perhaps even on Facebook. That will help you build social capital. Fifth, don't overtly ask for a job. It's important to keep your name in front of people who are in a position to advance your career. However, don't downright ask them for a job, at least not through social media. Make connections with the right people and let them see you're an intelligent, qualified candidate by updating your statuses at least several times per week, by providing content to the groups you join, and tweeting about that interesting article you just read. Next, search for jobs. Turn over those virtual rocks to find job postings. Most people know about sites like Career Builder, Monster, The Ladders, and Indeed, which provide access to millions of job postings and are used by a proportionate number of job seekers. Improve your odds in your favor by looking for job opportunities on Twitter feeds, employers' Facebook pages, and in LinkedIn groups. Now, of course, not every company or organization shares the latest job postings on those platforms, so you should also regularly check their website for those latest job postings. Finally, make a plan. You should have a game plan when you set out to use social media for aiding your efforts to move up the career ladder. You should plan on working on your profile one day, join other groups the next day, and follow a different company, organization, or an industry thought leader on another day. Don't do too many disparate tasks all day, every day. You'll waste too much time and not do anything as well as you could have if you were more organized and disciplined. So those are a few ideas of how to leverage social media to help you advance up the career ladder.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. That's a lot of great information on how to take those proper next steps. And I was checking, looks like we don't have any questions for the group. Any additional questions for moderators? Raylene, Doug?
I do not.
I have a follow-up one talking about networking, and you did mention, volunteering for projects within your organization. Do you have any other advice for networking within your organization besides volunteering for projects? Like, is there, a better way to meet those influential people to set up that mentor relationship within the company you're currently working for?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really can even be as simple as identifying key people who may at least touch upon interests of yours if you were to stay with the organization. And so it really is just approaching them and saying, you know what, I'd love to have lunch with you or grab a cup of coffee with you, and just learn a little bit more about what you do. That sort of gets to the informational interview bit. I know I'd probably talk a bit more about informational interviews in terms of outside your organization, but in many ways, informational interviews of sorts are just as relevant for people within your organization, especially if you're looking to make a move necessary to people who may be outside your team.
Awesome. So sort of just put yourself out there.
Exactly, which I know isn't always easy, and I recognize, I know there are a lot of us who are introverts, and so sometimes, at least for me even, is that you have to put yourself out there. If you don't, people won't recognize that how great you are, what value you bring, and that you aspire for more. So sometimes you just have to, there's a little message for for extroverts, this is a lot easier, but for the introverts anyway, I just encourage you, it's like, do whatever you do, just, turn it on when you need to turn it on, and then certainly find those opportunities. Obviously, once you're done, normally that can be quite draining on you, which is what makes you introverted. Then again, just then find that opportunity afterward to sort of like go back in your shell and sort of rest up again, at least in terms of emotionally or with your brain power. So that's what I try to do. That's what I've seen a lot of others who are introverts do as well. But it's basically knowing when to turn it on and just sort of blocking out time in terms of no different than if you knew you had to have a conversation with someone else, even if it's just socially. It's not necessarily tied to your career. You have that conversation, and you obviously sort of block out a certain amount of time for that, and then you move on with your life. And it's no different when it comes to pitching yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Awesome. Well, looks like we've come to the end of today's live broadcast, and thank you, Matthew, again for joining us. There's been some great information shared with our group. And so if you have any additional questions, feel free to share them with our team, and we'll definitely relay those with Matthew and help you as well. But I wanted to quickly, before we close today, remind everyone about our new Career Launch program. It's a great comprehensive and interactive career development program that we've developed to take you through all the elements of successful career planning, and career goal development is a big part of that. And there's a lot of great resources. So, as you do take those steps up the career ladder, whether it's your first step, the next step, or even, getting closer to the last step, there's a lot of good resources in there to help you with that. And our team is available to walk you through that process. So we definitely invite you to give us a call or email us direct at careerservices@grantham.edu. And on behalf of Matthew and the rest of the Career Services team in Grantham University, I want to thank you for joining us today. And as always, recordings will be made available, and we will be talking to you soon. Thank you.